are a renter in a rent-stabilized apartment in New York City, then listen up. New York City has approved a historic rent freeze for about 1 million rent-stabilized apartments, a decision that's been celebrated by tenants and debated by landlords.
The motion passes.
But what does this mean for your lease? Who qualifies? And could it change the city's housing market? New York City rental market expert and co-founder of Open Igloo, Allia Mohamed is here. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming in and clearing some things up. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So what do the guidelines mean? Please explain it in layman's terms, because it looked like a lot of happy people in there, I think.
Absolutely. So every single June, the Rent Guidelines Board gets together to decide on how much rents are going to go up for nearly 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. So over 2 million New York City renters woke up very happy this morning because the Rent Guidelines Board decided on a 0% rent increase for both 1-year and 2-year renewals.
Fantastic.
So what does this mean? What does this mean for renters, and when does the new guidelines vote take effect?
Yeah, great question. So there's been a lot of confusion. This rent freeze does not go into effect immediately, and it doesn't go into effect for everyone. So this goes into effect for renewals that start on or after October 1st of this year. So if you have a renewal, a rent-stabilized renewal before October 1st, your increase is going to be based on last year's vote, which was a 3% increase on a 1-year and a 4.5% on a 2-year.
I'm so glad you're here, because that made a lot of sense and super specific. Okay, so what happens to renters whose renewal lease begins before October 1st? We are as confused as the people who make the laws.
Great question. So I've been on the show before, and I've told people, always sign the 2-year, always sign the 2-year. You're always going to be better off in the long run. I am amending that advice for a limited time only. If you have a rent-stabilized renewal coming up before October 1st, you're going to want to just select the 1-year renewal. Your rent will go up 3% because that's what last year's vote was. And then for next summer's renewal, you're going to lock in that 0% for 2 years.
I've done pieces about, the rent, and the rent's too damn high, in the words of the great Jimmy McMillan. Landlords are always saying, like, it's wonderful, I know, we want to have decent rent, but at the same time, landlords are like, we also have to maintain the building, and we have taxes, and we have all that other stuff. So there are two sides to this story.
Absolutely. There's definitely a very valid discussion that's happening in New York City, which is, can landlords absorb this rent freeze for 2 years or even longer? And there's going to have to be some compromises that are made behind the scenes on how landlords are going to maintain those costs.
Okay. How do renters know if they live in a rent-stabilized apartment? How can they find it if they didn't vote?
Great question. So a lot of renters in New York City live in a stabilized apartment and don't even realize it. One of the things that renters think is that stabilized apartments are really rare, and it's only, your great-grandmother who has them. That's not true. Nearly 1 million rent-stabilized apartments, almost 50% of all of the rental units are rent-stabilized, and you can confirm by requesting your rental history from DHCR. That's a state agency. One of the things we also built at Open Igloo is a rent-stabilized map. So we've plotted where all of the buildings are in New York City that have rent-stabilized apartments. So you can confirm there, and if you're apartment hunting, really narrow your search to those types of buildings.
So surely there's a website, or more than one website, where you can check a map, whether it's Open Igloo or another one.
Exactly right. DHCR, state websites, Open Igloo.
Right. And this is great if you live in a rent-stabilized apartment, but how does it affect the landlords as well if you live in a market rate apartment as well?
Yeah, so this is disappointing news for people who do not live in a rent-stabilized apartment, and your rents can go up normally without any sort of restrictions. There are some protections for market rate apartments, like good cause eviction, for example. It doesn't apply to everyone, but there are limits on increases, 5% plus inflation or 10%, whichever is lower, but it's not quite going to be that 0% increase rent-stabilized renters are getting.
Before this goes into, is there a rush to raise the rents, and are landlords going to try to make up for it after it expires and be like, okay, now we're just going to jack it up double?
It's a great question. I've heard this argument made time and time again when we see new rental policy come across the finish line. We recently did analysis at Open Igloo that's shown that market rate rents are not going up astronomically. The average rent increase for a market rate apartment is about 5.7%. So still tough, but not what we're hearing. Oh, rents are going to skyrocket 10-20%.
Stay tuned.
I hope you
celebrate if you can. Holy smokes.
Or just move to the suburbs.
Don't.
Oh, move to the suburbs. Blasphemy.
I know, right? I know.
Thank you so much, Allia. Always great to see you. Chock full of wonderful information. You at home, for more information on New York City renters and landlords regulations, follow Allia at Open Igloo on Instagram.